Nothing's off limits with this duo. It's father and daughter, Dawn and Cher. And join the club if you're a Chattermouth.
Hey y'all, it's Cher and
Dawn.
And welcome back to the Chattermouth Podcast. Today we have Lauren from season 3 and 4 of Smothered here to join the podcast, spill all the tea. You're going to grab your favorite drink because you're not going to want to miss this one. Lauren, welcome to the Chattermouth Podcast.
Hey y'all, thank you so much for having me.
Of course, we're so glad you're here. And, you know, so much has happened in your life since being on Smothered. I know you've split with your then wife, Laura Leigh.
Yeah.
But before we get into all of that, let's start from the beginning.
Okay.
You know, what, first of all, made you want to apply for the show Smothered? And I ask this because we filmed season 1 of Smothered and we had no idea it was going to be called Smothered.
Oh, yeah?
Or I might not have applied.
Right.
But what made you decide to, like, go on a show knowing, like, this is about my mom, like, kind of being a little obsessed with me? Like,
Right. So I had never heard of the show Smothered, had never seen it, anything.
Wow.
My sister was in that stage of her life where she was getting married and she wanted to go and do wedding dress shopping. So she mentioned she wanted to go to Kleinfeld, which is, of course, where they film Say Yes to the Dress.
Yes.
So I was like, well, if we're going to go to Kleinfeld, we might as well apply to be on the show. And that's totally not my sister's thing, but that's why I thought it'd be great TV.
Yeah.
My mom and I are the ones that are like, oh, let's do this, let's do that. And my sister's like, no. And I'm like, that would be a really good show. So I went to TLC website just to see if they were doing a casting call, but because of COVID, they weren't. But I did see, and it did say Smothered was doing a casting call, and it just said like a description, like, are you and your mom really close? Like, do y'all do everything together? And I'm like, absolutely. So I wrote up this cute little sassy email, and I was just like, we do this together, we do that together. And I did mention, like, I was going through fertility treatments and my wife was off working at the time. So my mom was the one like holding my hand through those appointments. So they ended up giving me a call back 2 months later with no surprise. Here I was on the phone with my mom. I'm like, hold on, some weird numbers calling me. And so put her on hold, and it was a producer and a casting director, and we started the process.
Oh my gosh.
Unbelievable.
Did you watch the show at all before going?
I never watched the show.
Oh my gosh.
I did not even consider, even after like applying for it, it didn't even like cross my mind because I didn't realize it was already a show that was airing. It's just, it wasn't on my radar.
Didn't the
But weren't you
producers
curious?
ask you? Like,
So once Paul called me for the first time and he was like, have you seen the show? I was like, I haven't. And once I told my wife about it, Laura Leigh at the time, that, there's a show, and I told her the name of it because I don't think I mentioned anything to her until I got the phone call that I even like sent the email.
wow.
And so she immediately puts it up, and the first thing we see is Angelica and Sunhee in the bathtub. That's the first thing we see.
Oh my
gosh.
gosh.
What the hell did I sign up for?
Yes, exactly. Oh my God, that's really funny.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Was Laura Leigh happy about being on the reality show?
I vividly remember that morning, her and I having conversation like before work, and her saying like, I want to take the TV out of the living room. Like, I don't want to come home and watch TV. I feel like we need to like do more with our lives. So I came home from work after having that call, and I was like, I know you don't want to watch any more trash TV, but what if we're on it?
Wow. Wait, what was her response?
And she was like so into it. She's like, wait, hold on. What are we doing?
Oh my God,
my
that's
mom,
so
on the other
funny.
hand, was like a total different. I told her about the email.
Yeah.
I read it to her. She thought it was really funny when I said it. And when I told her they called and they were interested, she was like, oh my God, what'd you do?
Oh
like,
my goodness.
she's like, we're not doing that. I cannot do that. I'm like, you'll be fine.
That is so cool.
She'll do anything for me.
Oh, that is so cute. Wow. So tell us about your first time, like your first experience filming, because that must have been such a big day. Like, you've never been in front of the camera before. Well, wow. Wait, what?
The very first day we filmed is the day that you saw the biggest, cringiest scene of the whole show, I feel, which was like the insemination.
Oh,
that was the first day.
First day I had a camera in my face.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So how did you feel after you filmed it?
Oh my gosh, that you like that's filming alone is like scary. The first day is so intimidating. There's cameras everywhere. There's people, and like you have to have this very personal thing happening.
Did you say like, what the fuck did I sign up for?
So, you talk to the producers, and it is your real life. Like, this is stuff that is happening in my life. I am going through fertility treatments. We want to keep it as real as possible, but it's also TV, and we're amping it up a little bit.
Yeah.
So, we had talked about, like, my mom's coming with me to doctor's appointments, and my mom's helping me choose a sperm donor and things like that. And then I mentioned, like, I had tried to get pregnant via at-home insemination. And so they were like, well, would your mom ever help you with that? And I'm like, that's a little weird, like, I don't know. And so sure enough, like, we were like, yeah, like we could do that, like, behind Laura Leigh's back. There's some drama there. Absolutely. But yeah, when we're filming the scene, I mean, you have to remember, you're seeing me laying on a bed and my mom in front of me, but there's also a sound guy right here and a camera guy over here. And
yeah.
I remember looking back at the sound guy, like, legs up in the air, and I was like,
oh my gosh.
I bet you can't wait to put this on your resume.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow. That's intense for, like, a first day filming, though.
It is.
That is intense. You got, I think, a lot of hate for that, right? You experience a lot of people being like, why would you do that? That's incestual, things like that.
Yes.
However, it's interesting because I didn't really see it that way as much because, I know a lot of other people did, and people are gonna be like, Cher, why could you not see it that way? But, like, I remember my mom helped me put, like, my first tampon in and explain it. And, like, if your wife is not available to do something to help you, then at least, like, someone that knows you very well can help you.
I really, from my point of view, I was like, yeah, it's cringy, I get it, but to me, it was such more of, like, a medical thing than it was, like, a sexual thing, obviously.
Yeah.
But people, they took it and ran with it.
Right. That's so interesting.
And how did your mom handle the negative feedback from the fans?
My mom's so strong. Like, she did not, she never has cared what people think about her. And we both are very good about staying away from the comments and the messages and stuff like that. My mom's not really into social media at all. Whereas, like, Laura Leigh and my dad were so into it. I mean,
wow.
They were looking for it. They were getting the messages. They were getting people sending them stuff all the time. And me and my mom are a lot more, like, headstrong, I feel like, in that department. We did what we did, and I don't even watch the show. You
never watched it back.
I've never seen an episode.
You've never seen an episode. Aren't you curious to see an episode?
No, not
so
really.
Would your dad and Laura Leigh, like, get together and watch it? And
they
you
would
and your
get
mom
together and watch
hang
it.
out?
We did have the very first episode that we were ever on. We had, like, all of our friends and neighbors over, and we all sat on the couch and we were, like, ready to watch it. And I, like, walked out. I was just like, I just don't want to see myself. So, like, I would watch y'all's parts here and there. And of course, when we did the pillow talk, I would, like, see what was going on in y'all's stories. But
wow.
I don't even want to hear my voice when I leave someone a voicemail, let alone, like, watch myself on TV.
Wow. That is so interesting. Were you comfortable in front of the cameras, though?
Oh, yes. I'm very comfortable in front of the camera.
Yeah, I could tell. That's so interesting that you were comfortable with that.
What were some of your biggest challenges for when you were filming the show that you faced?
My biggest challenge always was, like, I always lived in the moment, and I'm okay with being a big personality and doing all these things, but it's when people are seeing it, 6 months later, 8 months later, and they think that's still your life. And so my biggest challenge is, like, realizing, like, what I did, people are thinking that's what's going on right now. So I know, like, when I split with Laura Leigh, people didn't see that on TV, so they didn't realize that was happening. And so when it did finally come out, they were, there was a lot to go with that.
and also, you kind of got not the best cut, I would say. Laura Leigh, on the other hand, got a really good cut. And it's interesting. It seems like this show kind of has, and I feel like Jared got a kind of a better cut than my mom and I. I think that's kind of like the way it goes. Did that affect your relationship at all?
So we definitely knew that my mom was going to be more of, like, the villain versus Laura Leigh in the story, and I kind of felt like maybe they would put me towards that look too. Laura Leigh's got a great personality. She knows how to turn it on, and everyone who meets her loves her. And that's a good quality to have. But yeah, I don't think that my mom and I are so likable when you first meet us. So
in person?
In person in general.
No way. I first met you. I was like, oh my God.
I just feel like, there's certain people that, like, you get to, you like them, and then you get to know them, and maybe you don't like them as much. And then there's people that, you maybe don't like so much, but then you get to know them and you love them.
Interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a very like mature thing to think of yourself. That's very interesting.
Like, yeah, you have to like really get to know me to like me, and that's fine.
Right. But did the show affect your relationship? Because I know sometimes when you watch it back, like you know what's happening in real time.
Yeah.
And then months go by until we see
Oh,
the
yeah.
show. And then, you know, everyone's loving Laura Leigh and they're like hating on you. So did that play any like effect in your relationship?
Absolutely. I feel like she really gravitated towards that, like towards the fans and the positive interactions that she was getting. And I attribute that to, you know, I always received a lot of love and attention from my parents, obviously, my mom,
Right.
from friends. You know, I was very active like in my sorority and my university. So I didn't really need more attention. I loved it, but I didn't need that in my life. Whereas Laura Leigh, she didn't have like the best relationships growing up, and she always craved that. Like, I think that's one thing that she really loved about like me and my family is that we like just, you know, took her in and gave her all that attention and love that she maybe wasn't getting elsewhere. So she really gravitated towards those fans. And yeah, I mean, she just needed it more, I think.
It's interesting.
Did it affect the relationship between you and your mom? Because your mom really
did.
didn't want to be on the show as much, and she's more quiet about everything. So did you get less close from it, or what happened after
The exact
that?
opposite, actually. Like, I feel like we got closer
Since being on
since
the show.
being on the show.
Interesting.
Because, you know, we were always close. Obviously, that's why they put us on the show.
Yeah.
Right.
But seeing that change in Laura Leigh and seeing her gravitate more to that attention and be more public about our lives than we ever had been before, seeing her like be more interested in posting things and, you know, doing the sponsorships and ads and stuff like that, I felt like she was kind of still living in this like reality show even after filming. And so I gravitated more to my mom, like, you know, in real life.
In real life.
Yeah.
That is very
That
interesting.
is fair, yes.
I feel like sometimes we're more smothering in real life too.
We are more
but not like in
smothering in
a
real
weird way. It's not like,
No.
well, you know,
Do you
love
feel
this
like you
show.
smother her more than she smothers you? Because that's how I feel.
That's interesting. No, I think she smothers me
I
more.
smother her more.
And so
You
I'll
smother
call
you.
my mom, like I'll call her, you know, and to
Yeah.
me it's just like, I'm calling her to talk about this. We talk about it, okay, hang up. 20 minutes later, call her, talk about this,
Yeah.
whatever, an hour later. And I'll hear my dad in the background like, how many times is she gonna fucking call you today? And I'm
Wow,
like,
yeah.
a million. Like,
Right.
So it's definitely me. It's definitely me.
That's
That's
funny.
so
I know.
funny.
And we're always on. I feel like we're always on the phone. So it's interesting. Do you live near your mom now?
No, we are an hour away.
Oh wow. So
Yeah.
you don't see her as much then.
I still see her maybe once or twice a week. I try to
Okay.
drive out there. We'll meet halfway, have lunch and
Nice.
stuff. So we still make an effort to see each other.
Right.
But yeah, we talk, we FaceTime every
Yeah.
single day.
You grew up in a smaller town, right? So how was it being like with the cameras and, you know, do people recognize you a lot after the show? What
Oh,
was
yeah.
that like?
So nowadays, like now that we haven't been airing for a while, it's very rare for me to get recognized. But when the show was airing, all the time.
Interesting.
Like being in a small town,
Right.
we felt like major celebrities at times.
Wow.
We would be out with our friends. Like I remember
Yeah.
we went to Topgolf one time, and people came up to us, asked us for pictures. There was one day that I swear, like every place we went, people were asking us for pictures, and it was always when I
Yeah.
had like no makeup on and like one of those
Oh,
pimple
it's
patches.
always
I will never
Always.
forget. I had a pimple patch on my face, no makeup on, and Laura Lee's like, "Let's go to Target." And I'm like, "I don't want to go out right now." And she's like, because I would be like, someone's gonna recognize me. She's like,
Yeah.
"We're literally running in for like one thing." We
Yeah.
did, and then she was like, "Well, let's go eat sushi or whatever." I'm like, "Okay," forgot. And then there's people like, "Can we take a picture?"
Oh my gosh, a pimple
I
patch.
mean, and we would FaceTime people, like we would meet people in Target and their
Yeah.
mom, they would want to FaceTime their mom. So we'd like talk to them. And there were times that we'd be at the grocery store, like with Reagan, kind of more of as like a newborn. And people are so sweet. They want to talk, but we would like talk to them. And then we'd be in the freezer section. They'd come back, and then we'd be, you know, by the bread,
Yeah.
and they'd bring their husband. Oh, he wants to meet y'all too. And finally I'm like, me and the baby are going to go in the car. You finish shopping.
Wow.
Yeah.
And were people nice to you in person when
Oh,
they would
yeah.
meet? Were they ever, because you know how online people are so
Oh.
quick to say the meanest things, but what about in person? Have you ever experienced that?
I never experienced any
that
hate in
interesting?
person. Now, my mom, I think one time she had told me she went to TJ Maxx or some like little store like that, and she said she was checking out, and the woman's like, "Oh, I know who you are," and my mom was like, "Oh, you watch the show?" And she's like, "Yeah." I know who you are.
Oh my
wow.
gosh.
I'm like, oh my God. But that's the worst of it.
Wow.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
something.
It's interesting how like online people are just like, and they're quick to say like the most random things.
Well,
you
that's
know?
why you're
online.
not supposed to read those
Exactly.
comments, you know?
And you know,
You do.
I do.
You're not
I know,
supposed
but you're
to.
not supposed to.
well, early on, so like in the middle of our first season that was airing, I realized that a lot of the hate that I was getting, like on comments and stuff on social media, it was coming from people who just genuinely didn't like me, and that's fine. You don't have to like me. So what I end up doing is a lot of people are like, she's disabling her comments, but I just changed the setting on my Instagram to where you can only comment if you follow me. And my mindset was, if you're leaving a nasty comment, then why are you following me?
Right.
So
That's
true.
And I
so
swear,
true.
like 90% of it just went away, just with that one change.
That's
Interesting.
very interesting. Talking about comments, you've gotten a lot of comments that Laura Leigh, your ex, looks so much like your dad.
I saw that.
Yes.
Did you see that?
No.
Oh my God, you didn't see that?
I've never seen
that. Was
that.
all over the internet.
No,
all
I've
over the
seen that
internet.
people have
Yeah.
said she looks like Reagan, or Reagan looks like her.
No.
No,
All
no,
over the internet.
no.
She looks like my dad.
That Laura Leigh
Yeah.
looks like your
Yes.
dad.
I look like my dad with that wig on. Like I think I
too.
look like a spitting image of my dad, so that's funny. But no, I
Yeah,
never
everyone,
saw that.
a lot of people would post pictures of like your dad
Oh
and
my
Laura Leigh next to
God.
each other and be like, she married her dad.
Yes.
I kind of did, but they are two peas in a pod. But no.
That is so
I
funny.
didn't see that.
That is too funny. How was it seeing their relationship during the show?
They have always been close, so it was
Yeah.
nothing new for me to see. It was just a camera seeing it.
Yeah.
Um,
Is there anything that you wish the cameras were able to like capture that they didn't capture?
there were moments that we filmed and like interviews that we did that I felt like kind of breakthroughs. Almost, I mean, you know, when you're in front of the camera, sometimes it's like a therapy session.
100%.
You're getting everything out in the open. And I remember having like a really eye-opening moment talking to the camera, talking to an interviewer about how I could understand from my mom's point of view at a young age when I did come out. Because I came out in like 5th grade. I think it was the first time I told my mom.
Fifth grade.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. How did you know in 5th grade?
I just knew that like love was like very fluid for me. It didn't have to be a certain sex.
Yeah.
It was just about the person.
I love that. And how did you tell her?
I remember I had feelings for a girl, and I was just like, you know, the way that people on TV have feelings about boys and girls, like I feel that way about a girl. I think I don't know my exact words.
It's very mature.
But I
feel like that you
remember
were
like
able to tell her that.
trying
Yeah.
to tell her, and but yeah, I remember doing the interview, and I remember like having that eye-opening moment and being like, you know, my mom really had to grieve the life she thought her daughter was going to have one day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and she also had to accept like this is a 5th grader telling her this, like, you know, 5th graders say things.
Right.
And then when I
Right.
told her again in, you know, 7th grade, like, okay, maybe it's a phase, you know, attention. Clearly my daughter likes attention, so maybe that's what it is. And then, you know, high school, I had like a steady girlfriend, and that was really hard on her. And like I said, she had to kind of grieve like, okay, like I had a daughter. I thought she was going to wear dresses and get married to a man and, you know, like live
Right.
that little fairy tale, but that's just not the life she's going to live. So I could understand that, especially now being a mom. Like, I don't know what Reagan's going to be into. Like, the world is changing rapidly. And there's a image of like what I see her life could be, but that's not necessarily what's going to happen.
I think that's really brave that you were able to like, you know, you told your mom at such a young age. And it's interesting how you said she kind of had to mourn that like that loss, and now you guys are still closer than ever though. So I love that. I think that shows that like just honesty and being open with your mom is just so important.
I'm
Like,
sure your mom really respected that you went to her and told her your inner feelings at the time. So she was going to definitely have your back on that.
Yeah, it was, like I said, it was definitely a lot for her to hear at such a young age. And
Right.
that's a big news and all of that. So she definitely took her time. She wasn't just like open arms and accepting right away. I can remember like, I had mentioned it, like I said, a couple times, and maybe I was in 7th grade, and like a neighbor, a close friend of ours, went to dinner with her. And when she came back, she was just like locked herself in her room, and like I didn't see her for a couple of days. And it was because
wow.
her friend had been like, oh yeah, you know, Lauren has like a girlfriend, and like it's around like the school in the area. And hearing it from me versus hearing it from like an adult and like a friend was a lot harder for her, I think.
Yeah.
So by no means was my mom like just super accepting and super like happy about it or anything like that, but she came around to it.
She
so
came around.
some
And that's
people
what
do.
matters.
Yeah.
Right. That's what
Yes.
matters, that she came around.
Did she ever say did you ever experiment with a guy or be with a guy to say, well, I know for sure this is the way I want to go?
Yeah, I mean, and that's why I say it, like, everything was very fluid to me. So, like, you know, I
Like,
did.
love is love.
Love is love. Like, I did
Yeah.
have relations with a boy, you know, as I got older. And
Right.
I was like, this isn't really for me. And then, like, I would be interested in a girl and then I'd be interested in a boy. And I used to say in college, I'd call my mom and be like, so I'm experimenting if I'd, like, date a guy.
Oh, that's so funny.
I'm over here experimenting.
Oh my God, that is
very
really funny.
Yeah.
I love that you like filled her in like that.
Oh, yeah.
That's so funny. Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Well, it was so much fun getting to like, you know, watch you on your on the show. I was wondering if like there's anything on the show that you had any like regrets about that you're like, oh, I wish we didn't film this, or I wish, you know, like I don't know, they didn't air that, or why did I wear that, or like anything.
Oh my gosh. Of course, like the fashion and
The fashion like bothers you.
I could see like the clips of the show. Like
Yeah,
again, I
yeah.
didn't sit down and watch it, but I did see clips of the show and I'm just like, I wore way too much cheetah print.
Cheetah
and I
print?
say
Way
that.
too much what?
Cheetah print.
Oh, that's so funny.
I wear way too much cheetah print, and I say that, and right now in my suitcase there's cheetah print in there,
so
it
funny.
hasn't stopped. But when I
Yes.
see it, I'm like, I don't know if that's really fashionable.
That's so funny. And there's a lot of like scenes that they film that like never air. I guess
Oh
that
my
this
gosh,
was one.
so much.
Yeah.
Was there one scene that they didn't air that you wish they did air?
Yeah, they, you know, we went to a gator farm, Laura Leigh and I, on like a day date, which was really fun. And I was pregnant at the time. It was one of like the cuter things that we have done on and off camera. We really got to like enjoy each other's time. And we were kind of talking about like what our lives were going to look like in the future and how my mom was going to be a part of, you know, the baby's life and things like that. So that was a fun day that I felt like I didn't know why it didn't make the cut, but I guess it just, there wasn't drama. It was just a fun day.
Right.
Right. What do you think of all the drama on these shows?
What do I think about the drama? I think
It's a hard
that
question.
sometimes there's drama, things are dramatized that don't necessarily need to be. And then there's things that are actually super dramatic that they kind of look over. Like I said,
interesting.
the, you know, my coming out story to my mom and like how she accepted it. And now she's accepting like not only the same sex marriage, but now we're having a child via like,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
donation and all that. Like that in itself is more dramatic to me than like my mom stealing me from Laura Leigh to go shopping.
Right.
Did right. You know, it's interesting like reading like fan comments or like, you know, a lot of people felt that, you know, Laura Leigh was kind of like left out or that she wasn't aware of things. Did you, besides like the filming on the day to day, did you feel that that's the case, that it's like you and your mom versus your at the time, or not really?
There were definitely times where my mom and I went to go do things because let me put it this way. So if you and your mom and Belle, like y'all want to go do a tea party, you're not going to invite your husbands. Like that's just, it's a girl's thing. You're going to do that.
Right.
So there are things like my mom wanted to go do with me, like me and her daughter. And she didn't necessarily want to invite Laura Leigh, you know, because she wants to spend time with her daughter, but Laura Leigh's a female. So like,
right.
you see what I'm saying?
It's hard.
It's
Yeah.
a little more
That makes it a little,
Yeah, so she's like, she doesn't want to exclude her because she's a female.
you're-
Like
but
she
you're
might want to
into
do these
different
things, but we're
things.
into different things.
Right.
So when we didn't invite her to go like to Target and get a coffee or to like English Tea House and things like that, it's not because we
Yeah.
were trying to hurt her feelings, but it's like I want time with my mom alone.
Of course. I think that we all do, right?
Yeah.
We all want that. And that's how you get closer in that special time. I always say, like, if you're trying to get closer with your mom, like, have a date with your mom, you know?
Yes.
And,
Did Laura Leigh become more resentful of your mom after rewatching the show?
Absolutely. I think Laura Leigh, for her, it was kind of hard for her to separate like what was really going on in her lives and the reality show. So she would think that our relationship was getting progressively like closer, which I think it was, but not in a bad way. I mean, I was going through pregnancy, you have to remember. And like what woman doesn't want her mom,
and right, of course.
you know, around when
Right.
it's like time to do all that.
So at the very end of the season, we saw Laura Leigh try to get pregnant. She was going to. Did that end up happening, or?
Yeah, so I feel like the show really left everyone on such a
Everybody
cliffhanger.
has that bothers me. I was like, what happened? Like, and it's so
know.
interesting because we all like never get to really like talk or meet up, which is why this is so exciting to like have you like you're a real person. Like I can touch
When I got in
you.
the car from the airport, I was like, oh my God, I know you. But like, honestly, you're a stranger. It's weird.
It is weird. I'm like, I know, right? Oh my gosh.
But we get to hear what happened.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay, no more cliffhangers.
No
Now
more
spill the
cliffhangers.
tea.
I can't believe it let off like that. And if you don't follow us on social media, like this is huge because you have no idea what happened.
Yeah.
But Laura Leigh got pregnant.
She did.
She did.
Laura Leigh was pregnant at the
So
time
that
that we
was a
gave birth.
real. I didn't think that was
Wow.
real. I was like, oh, she's not actually going to want to. I don't
So
know.
she got pregnant via at-home insemination with the same donor that we used for Reagan. So we were super excited, like they would be like technically half siblings. So yeah, at the time that we were like leaving the house to go to the hospital and the time I was giving birth, Reagan was already a big sister.
Oh my gosh.
wow.
Yeah, I posted. If you go to my Instagram, you'll see that there's a
Wow.
picture of her as a newborn with a little onesie on that says "Big Sister." You're like, oh
You
gosh,
posted that on social media?
I did end up
Wow.
posting it.
I didn't see that.
I posted it months later. So Laura Leigh did have a miscarriage, and we did post about it. I think it was like on the National like Miscarriage Day. A couple of months later, we shared the news, just because so many people suffer with miscarriages. And
Yes.
it's
So
not really
many.
talked about. I feel like now more than ever people talk about it, and
Correct.
I also feel like Laura Leigh, I think, would agree that I took the news like harder than she did. She was just excited to know that like her body did, did
Yeah.
get pregnant. But she didn't. We didn't continue like the trying after that.
Did she want to really have another child, or was she like competing with you with the child, or
Competed, huh?
not? Yeah, like wanting one because you have one and you're close with your mom, and this would be something that another child that she would be close with.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think it was so much competing. Now, would she have attempted to get pregnant if it wasn't for the show? I don't know, because she kind of went back and forth with that. For a long time, it was no. She would never attempt to get pregnant. That's not her. That's not, what she
Right.
wanted. And then I know as she got older, I think she saw her sister have a child that like resembled her a lot and things like that. So I think that, just getting older and progressing, that was part of it. But I also think the show had a big part of that too. But that want to do more.
Well, you were the only people who were like, I was on season 1, so I was able to go season 2, 3, 4. But you were the only one from a different season that actually got brought back.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
You went season 3 and then you got brought back for season 4. I think you guys quickly became a fan favorite because people wanted to know what was going to happen,
Yeah.
And then season 4 happened, and then
Right.
we got left on this terrible cliffhanger.
And then you and I were calling each other like, what is going on?
Yes, like what is going on here? Okay, this is where we have to really start spilling the tea. So we need the updates because a lot has changed since filming the show. And
Yeah.
if they were to do another show now with you, it would be completely different.
Absolutely.
Can you fill in our listeners? Sorry to pause the podcast, but if you're loving our podcast, then you'll love our book, and we have to tell you a little about it.
Actually, we wrote this book, and it's about how we got this close and how you can too.
It's called A Bond That Lasts Forever. And basically, it goes over our life's ups and downs. It shows pictures throughout our life and has adorable quotes throughout to inspire other mothers and daughters to have their own special relationship. You can pick it up on Amazon.com, at Barnes & Nobles, or wherever you get your books. Now, let's get back to the podcast.
So here's what happened. Between seasons 3 and 4, and even before season 3, there were times in my marriage that I wasn't fully satisfied or happy with the way I was being treated. I'm not going to put all of our dirty laundry out there. People make mistakes, people do things, and they mature and they regret things. But what I will say is I was hoping, like I think a lot of women do, that a child would change me, change my partner, change the way that we treat each other. I had that image of my head, like, she doesn't do this, she doesn't do that. But when there's little eyes and ears hearing her, like, she will. And also, Laura Leigh and I were very much on the same page when we met. We both wanted to get married and have children. Like, that is where we were. And looking back, I think we just wanted the same things so much, but maybe not necessarily with the right person. So between the shows, we weren't pregnant. We were still attempting to get pregnant. And at that time, I had went to her and told her, like, I'm really not happy. I don't think that we should continue our marriage. I just feel like we'd bring out the worst in each other at times. And that was a hard conversation. I can remember it so vividly, standing in the kitchen And she was like, can you just give me a little bit more time? Like, I hear you. I understand your concerns. And she also said, a lot of people feel this way when they're trying to have a child, or if they've lost a child, which at this point we had not. But a lot of people, when they're trying to have a child so much or go through a big loss or feeling of, loss, that it affects their marriage. And she's totally right in that sense. So I was like, maybe that's just what I'm feeling. I'm just feeling like I've wanted this for so long. It's not happening. And now I'm giving up on my marriage. Let me not do that. So she took me camping for the weekend, left our phones home, like just us, really connected that weekend. I was like, okay, like, let me give this another shot. And then the show called back and we're like, y'all want to do another season? And I didn't think it was the best move for our marriage. But you have to remember, we're also getting paid to do the show. And that went to fertility treatments. That went to everything we needed to start our family. So I was like, I don't want to lie to people and be like, oh, we're so happy. And, I'm feeling this way. But at the same time, I'm like, this is the family I want. This is the life I saw for myself. So let me give it everything I can. So we did another season. We ended up getting pregnant. And then, of course, I thought once she's here, once our baby girl's here, things are going to change. Things are going to get better. And they did not. So once Reagan was here, I kept that hope of like, oh, things are going to change in our relationship. We're going to be more caring towards each other. We're going to not name call each other, raise our voices when things go wrong. But that's not what happened. And it's different when you have those little eyes and ears watching you.
Yeah.
Even though she was so young whenever I did decide to leave, she had just made 1 year old. But the name calling, it's like, of all the stuff that happened, and a lot happened, the name calling is what really set me over. I was like, don't call me stupid in front of my child. That seems like the simplest thing, right?
Yeah. Name calling hurts.
How did your dad take the news? Because your dad, I think, was very close with Laura Leigh.
He was, and
did he know what you were going through?
No. So that's the thing. Anytime anything was happening, I always went to Laura Leigh's family.
To her family.
Yeah. So anytime, things were getting bad, I would like go to her family because I was like, if I go to my mom, if I go to my best friend, they're going to hate her. And that wasn't the goal. I wasn't trying to get people to hate her. I was just trying to get someone to understand what I was going through and maybe talk to her. And they did that. They were there for me at that time. But yeah, so things change when you have little eyes and ears watching you.
Yeah.
And you not only did I not want her to see Laura Leigh treating me a certain way, I didn't want her to see me taking it. I didn't want her to see me just like sitting there and taking that. And like I said, we sometimes we were the worst of each other. We brought out the worst of each other. So I knew that as hard as it could be, because I'm not a child of divorce, neither are you. We don't really know what it's like. We've probably had friends, cousins that have gone through that, but I don't know what that's like.
Yeah.
As much as I knew like I was rocking everyone's world by leaving, I knew that it was better for Reagan to grow up in 2 calm and happy households than in 1 chaotic one.
I love that you were really thinking about your daughter through this too.
Yes.
Yeah. I had processed leaving before I left for a while.
You had already thought about it. Did you go to therapy at all together, or?
We had gone to therapy kind of off and on for a while, but we never like agreed on like a therapy thing. A therapist is so personal.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
that's
people,
true.
I don't think people understand that when they try therapy. They're like, oh, it didn't work for me. I'm like, no, that therapist didn't work for you.
Correct.
Right.
And we're different people, and we needed a different type of therapist at the time.
Yeah.
So we never found one. Even like now co-parenting, we've been to therapists together, and it's just not, they don't give us the same thing. They don't give us what we need.
So on the show, I know, and even on social media now, when I posted us together, people were like, oh, they got divorced because of her mom. What do you say to people when they say that? Because it's like, you're so far off. You don't know what happens behind closed doors.
I would say that if anything, my mom held us together for longer than I wanted.
Wow.
Because my parents would always be my example. That's the example of love I've had. I mean, they were together since they were 15. And my parents, I'm not going to say that they've never name called each other or raised their voices at each other. I've seen that. And so if anything, my mom was, if I did call her, I'm just like, oh, I want to come over, I want to spend the night. She's like, you know, you're always welcome here, but you should probably work it out or things like that. So my mom is more of a reason that I stayed in my marriage than anything.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Mm-hmm. It's interesting how people have so many like outside these opinions and don't really know what goes on.
Yeah.
I always say you don't know what goes on behind closed doors.
Yeah. So true.
Well, and I always said, like, when I eventually posted it on my social media, like, social media is the highlight reel. That is what you want to see.
Correct.
And in my case, and in I think many cases, it's not only what I want you to see, but it's what I want. So, like, I would take a video of us, you know, playing or dancing with Reagan, and I'm like, it's because I said, hey, let's do this. Like, I want to do this because this isn't what we're doing in our real life.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. How do you, right, but that has to, like, moving forward, you want that to
being that you weren't on the season 5 or after 3 and 4, did the spotlight affect either one of you that you got really upset by it and then you're like blaming each other or arguing more after that?
It definitely affected Laura Leigh, I feel like, in a negative way because she had gotten that taste, you know, that 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. And so when it was kind of dying down a little bit, I think it did affect her. Like, wait, no, come back. Right. Whereas I was a little bit relieved because during that time is when we were going through it, really going through it.
And so many people were like, you know, I guess we're loving on her and she probably loved all that attention. Yeah. But I saw on social media when you did post about it, you know, you did mention the National Abuse Hotline. And I think that a lot of people were like, whoa, what's happening? Can you is there any light that you can shed on like why you decided to post that?
So just to kind of set the record straight, the word abuse is so, I feel like there's a spectrum for that. And I don't want to use a word that others use and, you know, are getting physically harmed and physically abused. And I don't want to compare my situation to anyone else's. But there is mental abuse. There is verbal abuse. There are things that should not be done to your partner, to anyone, to a child, you know. I don't want to go too far into that, but I'll just say that I felt like I needed to put that on there so other people who may be in a relationship, maybe they don't think it's that bad, but in their heart they do. I mean, there was bringing it back to therapists. There was one time that I did during COVID like one of those via chat therapy sessions. And she was asking me about my marriage. And y'all, I kept like the bad stuff. I didn't talk about that, you know? Yeah. This is my first therapy session with her. I'm just telling her like what's going on in my life. And like 20, 30 minutes in, she's like, I think like there's some verbal abuse going on or mental abuse. And I was like, you don't even know anything. Like, wow. I haven't even told you anything. Yeah. So that, like, I wasn't ready to hear that at that time.
Wow.
Yeah.
You never know what goes on behind closed doors, but I'm proud of you for like recognizing there was an issue, trying to first seek therapy and see if that can work. And when it didn't, realizing that your daughter's your most important and wanting her to grow up in like a stable environment, even if it means separating. Speaking of that, how is co-parenting now?
I was just going to
co-parenting now is definitely better than married life with Laura Leigh. I'll say that. Co-parenting is better and it's easier day by day. I mean, we have our ups and downs. We have our disagreements. We have certain things that are a lot more important to either one of us. So for instance, I texted her the other day and I'm like, please don't paint her nails. I know that's so silly, but like,
why don't you want her nails painted?
She's 2 years old and I really want her to be like excited about the first time she gets her nails painted. I want her to pick the color. I want her to like just like love it so much. So cute. Yeah. And I want that mother-daughter moment. Like Laura Leigh, you know, bring her to go get the eggs at the farm or like, you know,
like you
play
have your
softball
moments,
with her, ride the tractor with her. You can do all that. Let me paint her nails for the first time and like let me wait until she's like 5 or 6 and like super excited about it.
Did she respect your
She did.
That's so good. That was good.
And I realized that I can't get upset with her if I don't communicate things with her. And we are still, I mean, we were together for 7.5 years and here we are just now learning how to communicate. And that's great. And I think we are so much better friends than we were ever in a relationship.
Are you able to get to the point of being friends, you think?
I feel like we could. I feel like you definitely have to have boundaries in a co-parenting relationship. You don't want to give anyone any type of like false hope. Because, you know, it's hard when you break up a family. And that's the hardest part for me, is knowing that like she blames me for breaking her family.
So she didn't want to break up.
She didn't want to, No, like we had the conversation several times. I'd brought it up and she was just not willing to break, wanting to make changes. But when those changes didn't happen, you know, there's only so much rope you can give someone.
Right.
I don't
Totally.
know.
No, that makes sense. So where is your life now? Are you dating? Are you in a relationship? You want to fill us in?
So now I am dating. I'm in a relationship.
You're in a relationship.
We date though.
Date nights forever.
Yeah, she brings me on dates. So now I'm in a relationship with someone that I dated previously before Laura Leigh. We met back in college. And y'all, I've never been so like smitten with someone ever.
Wow.
We met like in the most organic way. Like I was at a college bar and I saw her and I was like, oh my God, she's gorgeous.
Wow.
And had like my friend ask her friend, like, is she gay? Like we weren't sure.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. Like everyone I've ever dated, like you could tell. You know what I mean? It's like that
You had,
kind of
like, a
lesbian.
type. Okay.
Yeah, definitely have like that type of lesbian. My mom used to say, like, why can't you date a pretty one? And then ironically, so Brittany and I dated and just casually dated at that time. She had just gotten out of like a really serious relationship.
So how did you reconnect?
So we reconnected. We've been friends the whole time. So we were always in each other's lives throughout my marriage and stuff like that. She was part of our wedding, like in our wedding video, dancing around on the floor. And
Wow.
she was invited to, my baby shower and Reagan's first birthday. Just couldn't come because she had like other priorities. But we've always been friends throughout. She would come to our house for dinner and we'd all hang out. Like lesbians are weird. Lesbians are so weird. We had like exes like were in our wedding.
That's so interesting because I don't think I don't know. You've never been friends with one of your exes, right?
No, it's so hard to be friends with an ex.
It's like,
it's
how do you-
wonderful if you can.
Yeah, so
but
I always admire people that can.
Yes.
Because like I don't know, I have trouble. I don't know.
Yes.
I would have trouble. That's really cool. Anyways, so she was at your wedding. She was always a friend. How did you guys like eventually progress the relationship then?
So, like I said, lesbians are weird. Lesbians have like their groups and their webs and all of that. So, like my group that she was very much like knew everyone. Everyone knew her. My group was like 5 lesbian couples, and we all had like children under 2. So, like we were like the married with kids lesbians, and then she had her group that were just like the hot single lesbians. I swear, like
Wow.
every time I'd like see a picture of her and her friends, I'm like, why did this looks like a dentist ad? Like they all have the perfect teeth, and they're all just like so attractive. I cannot. But so I remember calling her. I had left Laura Leigh. It was a couple of maybe weeks later, and I just really needed to talk to somebody, but not about my life, not about what I was going through. I was so tired of hearing myself talk and going through all the emotions. So I called her, and she was like, "Hey, like it's I didn't normally just like call her out of the blue." She's like, "Hey, what's going on?" I was like, I don't want to talk about my life. What's going on with you and your friends? Like, tell me about y'all's drama. And so that night, I think we were on the phone for like 3 hours, just kind of catching up.
Wow.
How did Laura Leigh feel after she found out that this is the girl that was your friend, went to the wedding, your wedding, like this is your girlfriend now?
Right.
Like, how did she feel by all that?
So we didn't initially like make it a romantic relationship. Like this was just somebody who knows me. I know her. At this point, Laura Leigh is starting to get Reagan. For a little bit, it was like every weekend or every other weekend, just kind of when she could. And so on those days, I didn't want to just sit at home and cry, So I was like trying to go out and like spend time, like go out in New Orleans with friends and do things. And so Brittany really became like who I'd go hang out with at that time. And we would like play basketball and walk around the park and hang out. And we genuinely like became like best friends again. And then that turned, romantic and back into, I've always, like I said, been super attracted to her, like her looks, her personality. And yeah, it just slowly turned into that. And I think Laura Leigh, there was a time that she had Reagan and I had called her just to tell Reagan goodnight. And she noticed like I was over at Brittany's house. And I think she was like, what is going on? But I was so like checked out of the relationship for so much longer than before I left that at that point I was ready. Like I wasn't looking for a relationship, but I was ready to love myself and to accept love from others.
Very good.
Right.
And is Laura Leigh now in a relationship as well? I think she posted on social media about it, right?
Yeah. So I don't follow her on social
you don't
media.
follow,
Yeah,
okay.
we don't follow each other on like Instagram or TikTok or anything like that. We are friends on Facebook, so we can kind of keep up to date with Reagan's photos. So I don't know like what she posts exactly, but she did share that she's engaged.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's
Wow.
fast.
That's
but great for
fast.
her.
Yeah, really fast.
Yeah.
But yeah. Wow.
So I met her fiance. We all went to lunch, Brittany and I, Laura Leigh and her fiance,
Oh,
Did
nice.
Reagan
and Reagan.
come? And
Yeah.
Reagan?
Yeah. It was
Yeah.
like
Wow.
a transition. Like she had her for the weekend, so I was getting her back on a Sunday and we went to lunch. And that was great. Like I feel like I needed that. I
Right.
really needed to like see who is this person?
Yes.
Excuse me.
She's
like who is this person? And how big of a role is she going to play in Reagan's life?
Right.
I don't want to put too much of her information out there, but I do know like she has other children. And so that was comforting to me in a way, and to know like, okay, she's been through this before. And not that I don't trust Laura Leigh or like her opinion, but I just felt like for so long I was the primary parent. I was the one doing everything. So I was happy that she had somebody who's also done it and been there and is going to be by her side during parenting.
Right. Right. Exactly. That is good.
And
I feel like.
One thing I think
Yeah.
that she would be okay with me saying is like, Laura Leigh's fiance is her perfect match.
Oh, that's
I
something.
swear. I talk about my sister and her husband a lot whenever I say like two people were meant for each other. I really think that Laura Leigh found her perfect match.
That's
Oh,
so
that's-
interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think that's so cool that you can like say it. What makes you say that?
We are complete opposites. That's one thing. And I'm not saying that like in a negative way. Like we are not the same person. And I feel like they just mend to each other. They mold to each other so well. And like they both like the farm life. Like I know you've got your chickens. You're like, you want to come see? I'm like, no.
Right. And so yeah, she's like, no thanks.
Like thank you, but no.
Yeah.
I have no desire to like, be on a
Yeah.
farm, on a tractor, pick up eggs. Like that's just not me. And
And that's
for a
okay.
long time we thought like opposites attracted, and I think in some relations it can. Some relationships that opposites do attract, but
Yeah.
that wasn't the case. Like it just died out,
Right.
I think you're a bigger person to come to realize it and actually say that Laura Leigh found her perfect match. I think you could all really be friends because of that.
Yeah. And I definitely want to make sure like we are great co-parents, but like I said, I always want to make sure we keep those boundaries. Like
Yeah.
like
Yes.
meeting every now and then, like whenever we were transferring Reagan, or like, in the future when she has a dance recital, we'll all get together. But I'm not trying to like go on vacation together. that might be a bit much.
Right. That makes sense. But no, that's good that you're, like this is good. You're going to lunch together. I think that's wonderful. And now you've moved in with your girlfriend, right? You guys are
Yeah.
living together. How is that transition? Like you have a child, and she kind of has a child now too,
I
right?
know. So she was single for like 2 or 3 years before we like established our relationship. And so that's huge for her to like open her heart and her home to not just another person, but a 2-year-old child. Like that's a lot. And so we went through the process of like Laura Leigh, accepting that I was in a relationship, and then like coming to Brittany's house. And Brittany, I can't believe she did this. I was like, you don't owe her anything. And Brittany's like, no. She can come over. She can see where Reagan's going to spend time. And so Laura Leigh did that. And we were all trying to be, I think, our best selves for that transition. I think we did okay. There were some bumps in the road, but Brittany has definitely, like I said, opened her heart and her home to Reagan and I.
It's wonderful.
It's the cutest thing. I think I posted the other day is like she runs down the hall on the days that she's home to go wake up Reagan first. Like she wants to be the one to open the door and like be like, good morning,
so cute.
It's so cute.
And how does your mom like her?
Oh, my mom's always loved my girlfriend.
Really?
Always. And so back in college, whenever we were casually dating, I'd go home. My house was like 45 minutes from university. And I would go home to do laundry. And I remember like, come with me. Like, I'm just going to make a day trip, do laundry, go eat with my parents. I remember Brittany had a nose ring, I think it was. And we were driving there. I was like, can you take out the nose ring? Like, I was nervous how my mom was going to like react.
Wow.
And Brittany was like, no. She's like, I'm not going to change,
who I am.
And sure enough, she was my mom's like favorite person I've ever brought home. My mom was like she's so pretty. And my parents really liked her. We did a lot with my parents at that time that we were like casually dating because I'm up my parents' butt.
That's right.
But that's great that they get along so well and everything. I noticed that you have a leg brace on. So has Brittany she's been helpful like with the child and with everything?
I had gotten hurt and Reagan was in swim classes, going to swim classes every day for 2 weeks. And so Brittany would like come home from work and bring her to swim lessons without me. And she even said, I was like, I can come and just sit there. And she's like, no, she'll be better without you. And she was better for Brittany, like getting her in and out of the pool and everything without me.
Aww. That's great.
It's so great.
So it was right person, wrong time, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. Oh my goodness.
That's nice.
Well, this has been so much fun having you on the podcast, sharing all of your updates. I wanted to ask you real quick, first of all, is there anything now that you didn't watch a show, but you've seen clips and now you've met us in person? I was wondering if there's anything about us that you're like, oh my God, I didn't expect that about them, or are we like what we seemed on TV?
Y'all are very much what you like. Y'all are very much what I thought you would be.
Really?
I feel like your personalities just glow off the screen. Like you could stop the camera right now and you would not change a bit.
Right. That's funny.
So,
okay, good.
Yeah. But speaking about my knee brace, I have a really funny and probably TMI story.
Oh my God, I want to hear it. Yes. Tell us.
I got I didn't get approval, but she didn't say I couldn't tell the story from my girlfriend. Okay, so Brittany and I, so on a Sunday, she's off on Sundays, we had a great morning, like went to brunch, went and hang out with her sister, and then we went home and it was nap time for Reagan. So we put Reagan down and we were laying in bed and we were just kind of talking about like what our future looks like in the next, 2-3 years, like how, I moved in with a child. So obviously we're talking about the future. So we're laying there and then one thing leads to another and like, adult time.
Yes.
So we're like messing around and then all of a sudden I just feel like the worst pain ever in my leg. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like screaming. I'm like, stop. And from her point of view, when she tells the story, she's like, I didn't know if she really wanted me to stop.
Oh my God.
I'm like, stop. And so she jumps up and she's like, what's wrong? I'm like, I don't know, but I think my leg is broken.
Oh my God.
I'm like, something is wrong. And it was the most pain I've ever experienced in my entire life.
What positions were you in? Oh my God.
Okay, wait. So the funny thing about that is, and I'm going to be jumping around a little bit in the story, but so my birthday was just a couple weeks ago. And
happy birthday.
And I was telling her, like, I haven't really, like, done that much in the bedroom. Like, I'm really not that experienced of a person. And I kept joking about, like, a feather. I was listening to a podcast, and it was, like, this guy, he's in his 50s, and he was talking about how him and his wife, like, their sex life has changed because they introduced a feather in their life. Like, just,
feather?
like just tickling each other. Like, just, like, one little thing, like, changed their whole sex life. I'm like, that is so cool. And I was like, I kept joking about, like, wanting to get a feather. So she, like, a week later, like a week before this happened, she bought me like a treasure trove, y'all, of like things I don't know if I ever want to try, but all kinds of stuff, whatever I want to try.
Nice.
And part of it was like the straps for the bed. And so one day I was like, oh, I don't know if we're ever going to use these, but like, let me put them on the bed. So if we want to, it's not like a chore later.
Yes,
and I was like, I'm home, I'll do it. So back to what happens. And my leg is hurt. I cannot move. I can just breathing. I can feel the pain throughout my body. I'm stuck like in a horizontal, position on the bed. And I can't even like pull my upper half of my body up because I'm in so much pain. So she calls her sister who's a nurse and she's like, I think she just needs to pop it back in. I'm like, I can't move.
Wow.
I call my parents.
Oh my gosh.
I called my parents and I'm like, hey, I think I'm going to the ER. Like, I think I need to call an ambulance. And they're like, what happened? I'm like, we were having sex. And Brittany's like, what? She's like, why did you just tell your mom that we were having sex? And I was
because
like,
we're on
Smothered.
Tell her mom everything.
I tell my mom everything. And I'm also like just not in the position to make up anything right now. Like, I'm hurt. So...
Were you able to get like your clothes back on before?
Go in a blanket.
So yeah, thank God I had a t-shirt on. Thank God. This is like 2 p.m. on a Sunday, y'all.
Oh
like
my
this
God.
is just like Reagan's taking a nap and like down the hall.
Oh my
and
God.
so my girlfriend's like, are you sure you can't move? Like, I gave it like 20 minutes. I'm like, call an ambulance. I cannot move.
Wow.
So an ambulance comes. There's like 2 paramedics. There's like 2 firemen. Like, there's all these men in her bedroom.
Oh my
And-
gosh.
Oh,
wait, did you have
before?
underwear on?
No.
Did she
So
put it on you?
before they got there, Brittany's like cleaning up the room. Like, you know, we've got like toys and stuff around. And I'm laying on the bed and I'm like, I don't care. I'm like, I don't care about that.
my
Like,
gosh.
stop.
You were in
And
such pain.
I was in so much pain. And she was like, I live in a small town. Like, I'm going to know the paramedics. I'm going to know the firefighters, you know? And I was like, oh my God.
Oh my god.
But then she grabbed me some panties and like, she's like trying to put them on. I'm like, you can't move me. You can't even touch me. You can't even put pressure on the bed. Like, it was good that it happened on the bed, but it also was bad because I literally couldn't move. You couldn't put any pressure on the bed and I would scream.
Wow.
So they ended up having to give me 4 doses of some type of of different medicines just to get me numb enough to move me on a stretcher.
Holy
And like,
moly.
I'm like, oh my God, I feel like I'm in like my 500-pound life, like that show, because they had
they had,
wrapped
pull-
me in the blanket
yes.
to get me on a stretcher. And I'm just like, I just couldn't move. But when I finally did get like numb enough, well, one of the medicines they gave me, they're like, this isn't going to help you get numb. Like we can't give you anymore, but this will help you disassociate from the pain. And I'm like, good luck. I'm literally like, good luck. But then I start cracking jokes and I start like saying like, I'm never having sex again. I'm like, I am never having sex again. And what's really funny, oh my gosh, one of the firefighters, he said, have you ever seen that show on TLC? And of course, I'm like, oh, fuck, I'm getting recognized right now.
Yeah, oh my
God. But he meant sex sent me to the ER.
Oh my god.
And I was like, oh, that is a show.
Yes.
And then I think one of them told Brittany like something about the straps, and she was like, no, we weren't using them. He's like, maybe you should have.
Oh
Maybe
my
this wouldn't
gosh.
happen. So
So crazy.
I'm crying. I'm like, oh my God, I'm never having sex again. And they put in the ambulance. And before Brittany gets in there, I'm talking to the guy and I'm like, she's never going to marry me now. Like, we're never going to get married. And he's like, if you want her to marry you, you're going to have to take the no sex thing off the table. But all that to say, like, by the time I got to the hospital, I was so numb that I just like adjusted my leg and it popped back in place, my knee. So it was my kneecap dislocation.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And then it popped back in.
And it popped back in, and I have like experienced like some pain here and there. I'm like wearing brace because I'm so scared they say it can happen again. So now I'm
Right.
like terrified of the
Oh
pain.
my
Like just
gosh.
thinking about the pain, I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot experience that again.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is
Wow.
one crazy story. I'm glad you're okay,
Yeah.
but that would be like scarring. But oh
Yeah.
my god! But now you're here to tell the tale,
Right.
to tell the tale of how
And I
sex sending
think I
you to
have
the ER.
permission to, so we're fine.
Perfect.
Now,
Oh my
this is a
god.
memory you'll never forget.
Exactly. I told her we were in the ER at this point. I'm feeling so much better. I can move my knee and I'm all good. And she's sitting in a chair across the room and she's looking at me and I'm like, you either have to marry me or break up with me right now. Like, you have to figure out what's happening because after this was a test.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
What a story. Well, thanks for sharing it with us. This has been such a fun episode. This is definitely like one of my favorites. And thank you so much for being here and being so open with all of us. And,
thanks
like,
for having
sharing
me.
everything. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you just wanted to tell everyone that you wanted to share?
No, I can't really think of anything that we haven't covered. I mean, if you think of more, then I'll be back.
That's right. Perfect. I love it. Well, thank you all so much for tuning into the Chattermouth Podcast. This was so much fun. We'll see you all next time. Bye.